liver. The liver is the biggest gland in the body. It is a solid, dark, red, wedge-shaped structure that is lying below the diaphragm. Then it partly overlaps the stomach. The liver supplies oxygenated blood from the hepatic artery. Then it receives all the blood containing digested food from the alimentary canal via the hepatic portal vein. The functions of the liver: first, it regulates blood sugar. When the glucose concentration in the blood is high, the excess glucose is converted into glycogen by the liver under the influence of an hormone called insulin that is produced by the islets of the Langerhans. That's the structure that produces insulin. So insulin is the one that converts excess glucose into glycogen, and then it is stored in the liver. Also, when the concentration of glucose is now low in the blood, the glycogen is converted into glucose under the influence of hormone called glucagon. So note this: when the concentration of glucose in the blood is high, insulin converts the excess glucose into glycogen. Then when the concentration of glucose is low in the blood, the glycogen is converted back into glucose by the hormone called glucagon. So excess glucose is stored in the liver as glucagon. So that's the regulation of blood sugar, so that we don't have too much sugar in the blood. That's why there is the conversion. And when the sugar level is low, then the glycogen is converted back to glucose, so that there will be a balance. We are talking about regulation of internal environments, and we are looking at the osmoregulatory processes, that is the organs that can make sure that there is a balance. And we have talked about kidney, then now is the liver. Looking at the functions of the liver: regulation of blood sugar. Then the next function of the liver is regulation of blood protein. The blood is unable to store protein or amino acid, hence surplus protein is destroyed in the liver. Amino acid or protein is not stored in the body, so it is being destroyed when it is surplus. So, and the liver is the one that does that. It regulates the protein that we have in the body. Excess amino acid is brought into the liver in the hepatic portal vein, and they are converted to urea, which is less harmful to the body, in a process called deamination. You see a me in that definition. So they are removing or converting amino acid into urea, then it is then excreted by the kidney. Another function of the liver in regulating protein is that the amino acids are broken down into carbohydrates and amino groups in the liver. The amino groups are toxic, and so they are converted by a further series of chemical changes into urea or ammonia, which is less poisonous to the body. The carbohydrate is converted into glycogen. I said that earlier. Then the urea is carried in the blood from the liver to the kidney. So it is the kidney that excretes the urea. The liver also synthesizes plasma protein, including albumin, prothrombin, and fibrinogen, which are responsible for clotting of the blood. The next function of the liver is detoxification or detoxification. Detoxification is another function of the liver. Poisonous compounds produced in the large intestine by the action of bacteria on amino acid enters the blood, but on reaching the blood or on reaching the liver, they are converted to harmless substances that are later excreted in the urine. So when, by the action of these bacteria, poisonous compounds are produced in the intestine. So when they enter the blood, by the time they reach the liver converts them into harmless substances that are later excreted in the urine. The next function of the liver is the production of bile. Bile is synthesized by the living cells and stored in the gallbladder. It is passed into the duodenum through the bile ducts, and the bile salts emulsify fat in the small intestine to enhance digestion and absorption. So the bile duct emulsify fat in the small intestine so that digestion and absorption can be enhanced. So it's the liver that also brings about this function or this production of bile. The liver also regulates lipids by removing lipids from the blood and converting them to glucose, then oxidize them to release energy during respiration. Also, the liver forms red blood cells. In the fetus, the liver forms red blood cells, but in the adult, red blood cells are formed in the bone marrows. So, the liver forms red blood cells in fetus, that is in the zygote in the womb, the growing young one in the womb. It is the liver that forms the red blood cells in them. Also, the liver eliminates hemoglobin from the red blood cells. The aged red blood cells are destroyed by the phagocytic cells that are lining the blood vessels of the liver, the spleen, and the bone marrow. So, it is from this action that the liver obtains iron that is used in blood formation in the marrow. So, when the red blood cells are old or aged, they are destroyed by phagocytic cells that are in the blood vessels of the liver, the spleen, and the bone marrow. So, this destruction is the one that the liver obtains iron. It gets, instead of allowing the hemoglobin in the red blood cells or the erythrocytes to just go like that, it obtains iron that is from these old red blood cells to form new red blood cells in the bone marrow. Then the liver also stores vitamins and mineral salts by manufacturing vitamin A from carotene, and stores fat-soluble vitamins A, D, and B12, and a number of other minerals such as potassium, copper, and iron. So the liver also is the one that does this storage of vitamins and mineral salts. Also, the liver produces heat, and the heat produced by the liver is distributed by the circulatory system and helps to regulate the body temperature. So you don't have a part of the body being hot and the other part being cold. There is a balance. The liver helps produces heat that is distributed by the circulatory system to regulate and make sure there is a balance in the body temperature. The liver also produces plasma albumin, which is a constituent of the blood that is present to maintain the osmotic pressure of the blood. Now, we'll move on to talk about the diseases of the liver, the effects and the remedies. And looking at this diagram, you can see abnormalities. So we'll get to talk more about the diseases, the effects and the remedies of liver problems. And the first disease that we'll be talking about is the infectious hepatitis. The infectious hepatitis is an inflammation of the liver that is caused by a virus, and the disease results in the liver cells being unable to store and reconvert already stored glycogen into glucose. You know, when I was mentioning the function of the liver, I said they regulate the blood sugar. That is, when there is excess sugar in the blood, they convert the excess glucose to glycogen by the action of insulin as the hormone. Then when the blood sugar is low, the glycogen is converted back into glucose by another hormone called glucagon. So in infectious hepatitis, this function is not being able to be performed because the liver is inflamed. Then this disease also may be spread from infected healthy person. It might be contagious in food. You can contact it from food and drink. An healthy person can contact this disease from food and drink of an infected person. Then symptoms of infectious hepatitis: we have fever. The person might have fever, might be weak, might experience weakness, headache, might also experience loss of appetite, and sometimes jaundice. How to treat this disease? The infected person should avoid protein diet. They should take vitamins, avoid hard and fatty food. The person should not drink alcohol, will not help. The person should take a lot of glucose. Then Sometimes drugs might be administered, and that should be done by a certified person so as to secure the health of such an individual. The next disease of the liver is the gallstones. This is a condition in which excess cholesterol accumulates in the gallbladder or the bile ducts. Sometimes it may block the ducts and it will lead to an obstructive jaundice, in which the skin of a fair-skinned individual acquires a characteristic yellowish appearance due to the retention of blood pigment in the blood, and that blood pigment is called bilirubin. So there is a blockage, just as we have in kidney stones. We have gallstones also. Then symptoms of gallstone: pain, nausea, vomiting. Then how to treat gallstone: the person should avoid fatty and greasy food that contain cholesterol. Then the person should rest. Then the gallstone might be removed by surgery. So those are the ways to treat gallstone. Then the third disease is diabetes mellitus, and this is a condition in which the sugar content of the blood is abnormally high, and that is called hyperglycemia. The blood content is abnormally high because the liver is unable to convert excess sugar into glycogen for storage. That means there is something wrong with the production of insulin. Insulin is not performing its function. Insulin is one that is responsible for converting excess sugar in the blood into glycogen. So, and this lack of hormone called insulin renders the liver cells more permeable to glucose. Then the symptoms of diabetes: we have sugar in the urine. Then excess thirst, that is called polyphagia. The person thirsts so fast because the water and the glucose is being taken away so fast. Then it might be expressed, this disease might be expressed